Have you ever looked at a painting or read a story and felt something ancient stir within you? Something mythic, symbolic, even spiritual? As if the work wasn't just speaking to your mind, but to a deeper, older part of yourself? That sensation, that resonance, might be the fingerprint of Carl Jung, a man whose theories forever changed the way artists and writers understood the human soul. The 20th century was a turbulent and transformative time. War, industrialization, existential dread, and rapid social shifts created fertile ground for new ideas to take root. Amidst this upheaval, the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung offered a radical reimagining of the human psyche, one that gave artists and writers a fresh lens through which to explore identity, myth, and the collective unconscious. His ideas didn't just influence the world of psychology, they rippled through the creative spheres, giving birth to some of the most profound and enigmatic works of modern art and literature. Welcome to the Unfolding Journey, a space where we dive into the deeper currents that shape our culture, our creativity, and our collective story. Here, we explore philosophy, psychology, literature, and art, not just as isolated disciplines, but as interconnected paths to meaning and understanding. If you're someone who seeks the symbolic threads woven through history, stories, and human consciousness, you're in the right place. Today's journey takes us into the world of Carl Jung and the profound impact his ideas had on 20th century artists and writers. From surrealist painters to existential novelists, from depth psychologists to postmodern poets. We'll look at how Jung's concepts like archetypes, the shadow, the anima and animus, and the process of individuation became creative fuel for some of the century's most visionary minds. Before we dive into his influence, let's briefly meet the man behind the ideas. Carl Jung began his career as a follower of Sigmund Freud, but their paths diverged dramatically. While Freud emphasized the sexual and repressed drives of the unconscious, Jung expanded its scope, describing a collective unconscious shared by all humans, a reservoir of ancestral memory expressed through myths, symbols, and archetypes. Jung believed that to become whole, a person must confront and integrate the unconscious parts of themselves, a process he called individuation. This journey inward, often mirrored in mythological or religious motifs, became a powerful metaphor for the artist's quest. And it was this psychological model, rich in mystery, symbolism, and transformative potential, that would captivate and inspire generations of creatives. Jung's concept of archetypes, universal patterns of behavior and symbolic figures, found fertile ground in the visual arts. Archetypes like the hero, the mother, the trickster, and the shadow became tools for exploring the universal through the personal. Take the surrealist movement, for example. Artists like Salvador Dalí and Max Ernst didn't just depict dreamlike scenes for shock value. They were exploring the depths of the unconscious, pulling imagery from the same symbolic well Jung described. Dalí's melting clocks and barren landscapes reflect not just Freudian dream logic, but Jungian timelessness, the fluidity of psychic reality. Ernst's hybrid creatures and mysterious forests evoke the archetypal journey through the unknown. These were not random dreams, they were visual myths. Jung's influence is also evident in abstract expressionism, particularly in the work of Jackson Pollock. Pollock believed in tapping into a primal unconscious source, a kind of modern shamanism. His drip paintings can be seen as maps of the psyche, not in terms of shape or form, but in process and externalization of inner chaos and order. In literature, Jung's concept of the shadow, the unconscious, repressed parts of the self, became a dominant theme in 20th century fiction. Writers began to explore characters not as moral exemplars or plot devices, but as fractured, complex psyches on a journey toward wholeness. Franz Kafka, though not directly linked to Jung, embodies this exploration. In The Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa's transformation into a monstrous insect reflects the alienation and dehumanization of the self, a shadow made visible. Kafka's bleak, labyrinthine worlds mirror the unconscious itself, distorted, irrational, yet deeply meaningful. More explicitly Jungian is Hermann Hesse, a writer who read Jung avidly and even underwent analysis with one of his disciples. In Damien and Steppenwolf, Hesse's protagonists confront their shadows, question societal norms, and embark on inner journeys. In Siddhartha, we see the process of individuation unfold as a spiritual odyssey. Then there's James Joyce, whose Ulysses is less a novel than a psychic landscape. Joyce's use of myth, notably Homer's Odyssey, to structure the modern experience is a perfect example of Jung's idea that myth lives within us. Leopold Bloom's journey through Dublin becomes an archetypal hero's journey, mirroring the search for selfhood in a fragmented world. Another crucial Jungian concept is the anima and animus, the inner feminine in men and the inner masculine in women. These psychological components often appear as symbolic figures in dreams or art, guiding or obstructing the path to individuation. In literature, this duality was explored not only thematically but also structurally. Virginia Woolf, in Orlando, crafts a character who lives for centuries and changes gender, dissolving the rigid boundaries of masculine and feminine. While Woolf didn't explicitly cite Jung, her exploration of inner and outer gender reflects the psychological truths Jung articulated. In visual art, the rise of feminist surrealism saw artists like Leonora Carrington and Remedios Varo using fantastical imagery to depict the psychic landscape of womanhood. Their work often includes mystical symbols, chimeric figures, and dream logic, speaking directly to Jung's theories of the unconscious and archetypal transformation. Perhaps the most profound influence Jung had was on the very concept of what it means to create. For Jung, the individuation process, the integration of the conscious and unconscious selves, was the highest goal of psychological development. And for many 20th century artists and writers, this became a metaphor for the creative process itself. Art was no longer just a product, it was a journey. It was a way of becoming. This is perhaps clearest in Carl Jung's own art, the Red Book, his private journal of visions and paintings. In it, Jung documented his inner journey, complete with mythic dialogues, symbols, and mandalas. Though not published until the 21st century, the Red Book quietly rippled through the 20th century, influencing thinkers like Joseph Campbell, Northrop Frye, and countless artists. Jung showed that to create art was to face oneself, to descend into the underworld of the psyche and return with something valuable to share. One of Jung's most influential intellectual descendants was Joseph Campbell, whose book The Hero with 1,000 Faces synthesized Jungian archetypes and comparative mythology into the now famous hero's journey. This structure became a blueprint not only for novels but also for films, particularly in Hollywood. George Lucas famously cited Campbell and Jung as key inspirations for Star Wars. Luke Skywalker's path mirrors the process of individuation, meeting mentors, confronting the shadow, Darth Vader, and integrating his identity. This isn't just storytelling, it's mythic psychology. Through Campbell, Jung's ideas became embedded in screenwriting manuals, video games, and fantasy fiction. The modern myth, guided by Jungian logic, became a cultural cornerstone. Of course, not all artists embraced Jung uncritically. In the later 20th century, postmodern writers began to question the very idea of archetype and myth. Writers like Thomas Pynchon and Don DeLillo played with Jungian ideas while simultaneously deconstructing them. They asked, can we still speak of a collective unconscious in a fragmented, media-saturated world? Does the hero's journey still hold weight in an age of irony and simulation? Yet even in critique, Jung's shadow loomed large. The very structures they challenged were the ones Jung helped define. In many ways, Jung's legacy is more alive than ever. In an age of digital overload, artificial intelligence, and ecological crisis, the call to return to the inner world, to the soul, is gaining new urgency. Jung reminds us that the artist is not just a commentator, but a seeker, a healer, a visionary. Jungian thought invites us to look beneath the surface, to see symbols where others see noise, and to find meaning in the chaos. It's a philosophy that honors both the mystery of creation and the discipline of self-reflection. Whether you're a writer chasing your muse, a painter following strange dreams, or simply a human being searching for meaning, Jung's ideas remain.